Now, good morning all. My name is Laurent Mas. I'm a co-founder and director of Successful Business Advisor. And today, it's the 9th webinar of the New Economy Summit. And again, today, we got someone very special, extraordinary, that going to give you a lot of golden nuggets for you in your venture. And I'm going to let David introduce Caitlin.
Thank you, Laurent. Good morning, all, and thanks for joining us again today. We welcome you all here. So I'm going to introduce our speaker, as Laurent mentioned, Caitlin Iles, who I've known for some time now, and she is a highly respected venture capitalist, angel investor, and advisor. She's also an entrepreneur who enjoys nothing more than disrupting complete industries and an activist for women in business. We've had a few of them this last 2 or 10 days.
Yes.
And we're very pleased to have you here.
Yes.
Once described by Sir Richard Branson as a game changer and force to be reckoned with, Caitlin's keynote presentations are filled with wisdoms that will unlock human potential and empower performers. But more than that, they are loaded with inspiring insights gained from a lifetime achievement despite the challenges she has faced along the way. A lot of leaders have had that problem too.
Yes,
Caitlin began her career in psychology, helping to rehabilitate drug-dependent people. She went on to work across a wide variety of industry sectors, among them advertising, advisory, and enterprise. Caitlin has established businesses in the Middle East, UAE, Europe, and in Australia. She has worked with some of the world's most respected companies, delivering disruptive projects that have revolutionized how complete industry operate. Her topic today is economic downturn, the breeding ground for unicorns and camels. Thank you, Caitlin.
I invite you all to welcome Caitlin, and the floor is all yours, Caitlin.
Thank you very much. I'll share my screen, and while I do that, I just want to thank everybody for participating today, because it's a bit of a career milestone for me. While I've delivered many keynotes domestically and abroad, this is the first time that I'm delivering a keynote via Zoom. So here we go. I wanted to give you a topic today that was a little bit of fun, but is very much, I suppose, and it will give you an insight into the world of venture capital, to the startup ecosystem, and also to the investment world. And what I really hope that it does is to give you some optimism and identify some new opportunities, either for your business or for your career, because the media is making everything out to be very doom and gloom. But the truth is that recession and economic downtimes provide a unique opportunity and environment that is perfect for the establishment of billion-dollar-plus businesses, and especially those that are globally scalable businesses and tech-enabled, which is what I'm interested in. Now, I'm sure many of you know, but these types of businesses are usually known as unicorns. It's a term that was coined in 2013 by venture capitalist Aileen Lee, who's the founder of Cowboy Ventures over in the States. And she chose this mythical animal to represent the statistical rarity that such a venture would be successful. Lee claims that the first of the unicorns were founded in the 1990s. And the most significant, of course, being Google, which is still prominent in today's market. So I'm sure you've all got an understanding of what recession looks like, and David clearly is much more versed in this conversation, but it provides some context. And what recession really is defined by 2 consecutive quarters of fallen GDP. And it's part of any natural business cycle. Recession is followed by recovery, peak, trough, and so the cycle goes. And recession tends to occur every 5 to 12 years. And for this reason, it's really clear that we've sort of been overdue a recession. In fact, The last one was 12 years ago when I was in Dubai running a property investment business of mine, selling Australian property investment stock to Aussie, New Zealand expats over there. But what we've seen in this instance is that we've had GDP growing for a record 126 months until January of this year. So while COVID definitely has put exceptional pressure on the economy and on almost every business and industry, it's not the sole cause of the recession that we're heading into. And recessions are caused by many financial, economic and psychological factors like reduced consumer confidence. Other key indicators are flattening yield curves, low unemployment, high interest rates, stock market crashes, deregulation, wage price control and deflation. But despite the challenges that recession produces, what we've seen is the last one was pretty awesome in terms of timing and providing an environment to start a new business. I'm sure all of you know each of these businesses: Netflix, WhatsApp, Pinterest, Slack, Airbnb, Zoom, Amazon, Instagram, Uber. And while the current environment has actually supported the growth of a number of these businesses, especially Zoom and Netflix, Uber and Airbnb haven't fared as well. They've both had a $10 billion or so loss to their market cap. The rest of them have continued to really perform inside of this environment. And looking back through history, what we begin to notice is a pattern that extends beyond the startup ecosystem. In fact, Apple, Microsoft, General Electric, IBM, General Motors, Burger King, CNN, and my favorite, Disney, were all founded during periods of recession. So for courageous founders and investors, the worst of times have actually proven to be the best of times, and their decisions have proven to be some of the most lucrative in the history of business. And so I encourage you to start to look for your own opportunity. I have to say I'm biased, but I'm going to strongly suggest that when you're looking towards the future, you want to look at digitizing your existing business or leveraging technology to create a scalable business solution that can spread throughout the world and scale very quickly. So why is it that I say that? Outside of my bias, it's clear that tech outperformed businesses on the S&P 500 during the last recession and beyond. Further to this, and most people find this really surprising, that over the last 15 years, 52% of companies on the S&P 500 have become extinct. And there's a big shift, right? Back in 1955, the average lifespan of a company was just over 60 years. In 2015, company life cycles had fallen below 20 years, and now we're looking for that to fall below 10. So competition, the ability to get into market, to deliver a solution, to evolve, has increasing pressure to perform in a shortened period of time. And tech clearly reduces a lot of those challenges. So why is disruptive technology so attractive as a potential new business opportunity for yourselves to look at? Well, the cost of starting a business inside of the tech industry has never been cheaper than it is now. In fact, 2 people or a single person, but I encourage you always to work in teams, you get better results, can start a business within an hour and a credit card. Before 2000, it would cost you about $2.5 million to get a startup, in inverted commas, up and running. And they were known as big fat dinosaurs, right? They were slow to move, they were arduous, and there was a lot of risk involved in them. Now you can literally start up a business relying on services like AWS and other cloud platforms and SaaS software, and get a business in market that can scale very, very quickly and that are very lean and agile, more like a cockroach. So there's very low barriers to entry and big exits, which attract individuals to start to get into the ecosystem. and also the limited amount of lifetime capital that is required to drive success. So why is it that recession is such a good environment in which to start a unicorn? Well, phases of slower growth or larger scale economic downturns weed out obsolete business models and products and quickly cut down weak new ideas. This frees up the market for new players with strong products. There's also less competition for top talent, and that's because many are leaving large corporate organisations due to redundancy and are looking to capitalise on their experience and knowledge. Historically, office space and office prices have come down, and I don't think that's a factor so much in the post-COVID world, but definitely a decline in operational costs during downturn can drastically enable leadership teams to focus on delivering a great product rather than worrying about operations. A recent BCG study found out that downturns tend to be excellent times for deal making. And that's definitely been my experience. In the last 3 months, I've been working on a new startup with a team out of the US, in Sydney, and some in London. And we've got to yes far faster with key significant individuals than we ever would have, far less cost, not having to get onto planes, etc. And what this study has found is that these deals that are done in times of economic downturn are actually far more valuable than those that are done inside of a strong economy. So I encourage you to get out and look at where potential partnerships exist for you and leverage technology to be able to close, as I have been in my own experience. Contrary to common belief, the most successful founders have an average age of 42. And going back to my comment about talent moving out of the workforce or traditional workforce, there's a lot of individuals that are sitting around at the moment with key skills that can be leveraged either as a co-founder or as an advisor. So look at what your skills are and the skills gap, I suppose, in yourself, and find a great team and get together and look at some new ideas for the future. Recession really forces founders to refine product market fit and to drill down on the problem that they're trying to solve and the product that is required to do so. We've seen that founders during recession squeeze more out of every single dollar. They're much more careful about how they allocate resources. They choose revenue faster, and they're far more innovative and think outside of the box when it comes to growth hacking tactics. And what's really interesting about each of those, regardless of what part of an economic cycle we're in, is that they're all things that female founders exhibit and drives to their success over time. So I didn't know this until last night, but I quite loved this fact that a female unicorn is known as a sparkle. And here is an image of Australia's youngest and most well-known tech entrepreneur slash unicorn. Mel Perkins comes from Sydney, and earlier this week her business Canva, which is a graphic design platform, which if you haven't used and you're looking for a solution that's free in most cases to help design social media content, pamphlets, flyers, LinkedIn headers, you name it, go to Canva. And the business was valued earlier this week at $6 billion, making her the third richest woman inside of Australia, and all at the ripe age of 32. So one thing we know from an investment perspective about female founders is they actually deliver significantly higher returns because of all those factors that we were talking about and characteristics earlier. In fact, female founders deliver significantly higher company valuations pre-exit, 64%, significantly higher company valuation post-exit of 46%, a much higher return on investment, 35%, and revenue, 12%. And this factor is not just limited to the startup ecosystem. In fact, a recent report that's getting a lot of coverage at the moment because it's produced such quality, tangible data has shown that an increase of 10 percentage points or more in female representation on the boards of Australian ASX listed companies has led to a 4.9% increase in company market value, worth the equivalent of $78.5 million for an average company. The appointment of a female CEO also leads to a 12.9% increase in the likelihood of outperforming in a sector, especially during recession. And having more key female personnel is also something that drastically shifts performance. So, going back to today's topic, I'm sure you've all got your own perception and understanding of unicorns, but the term camel is a new one to the venture industry, and it has been introduced quite recently to talk about the need to have more resilient types of businesses. You know, the founders of unicorns really are doing everything they can to sprint to a $1 billion milestone. And they've been criticized, especially a number of founders, for just racing and racing and racing with little regard for the downside and being quite reckless at times. And if you haven't read the book about the Uber founder by Mike Isaac, super pumped, I strongly encourage each and every one of you to do so. It gives you really good insight into the key players inside of the US venture system, and what it really has taken to build some of these businesses. Unicorns have typically been very, very rare. Today there are about 500 of them. And while in 2013 a new unicorn appeared every 2 months or so, last year a new one occurred every 2.5 days. So people are learning how to deliver better business solutions faster, and also get greater product market fit. So Camels really, although they're chasing billion-dollar valuations, the approach is far more measured, far less risky, and of course a camel is a real animal, not just a mythical being. So in contrast to unicorns, they're focused on building solid businesses that over time will produce success. And as an animal themselves, they're resilient creatures. You know, they travel long distances in tough conditions and go without food or water for many days. And surprisingly, they can also sprint very, very fast, as I've learned having attended camel races in the Middle East. But in terms of business, camels can still achieve rapid growth, but they are balanced in managing their costs. The pricing tends to be far more reasonable, and they only raise capital when it's needed, and maintain a very long-term view. So depending on your risk appetite, you can choose whether you want to build a business on a unicorn or camel trajectory. What I will say is that VCs are looking to de-risk, and this is a trend that started even before this economic downturn, where there's a preference now to invest in businesses that are producing revenue from the start, rather than these blue sky lofty views of businesses that one day might deliver a return. And I think the best example of that has probably been Uber. And also there's been a trend to move away from single unicorn demigods, again Uber's founder, etc., because they've proven to be very challenging personalities that have caused huge distraction to the success of the business. So while we've now got a context and two approaches to how you could build a business, there's another aspect that really needs to be unpacked. And I think that most people have believed that building a resilient business means that they're building a stronger, more sustainable business for the future. But I don't know that I believe this to be true. In fact, I don't believe it to be true. Resilience really equals long-term instability and weakness. And rather than focusing on building resilience, what I encourage each of you to do, and especially startup founders, is to focus on building systems and processes that lead to your organization thriving as a result of stressors, of shocks, volatility, noise, mistakes, faults, attacks, and failures. And to do so is to build anti-fragility. And it matters more than it does resilience. Anti-fragility is a concept that was introduced by the author Nassim Nicholas Taleb in his book Anti-Fragile, which was published in 2012. I strongly suggest that each of you either listen to it on Audible or get a copy for your physical library. So let's unpack the distinction between resilience and anti-fragility, because it's really quite a mind bender. And if you can master it, you're guaranteeing your success in the future. So let's say post this conference, I was to send each of you a set of Waterford glasses, brittle, highly valuable, and let's say that each of you are interstate, or I was just sending it from my home to yours. What I would do is wrap it in bubble wrap, put it in a box with those little polystyrene or whatever they are, sort of pieces of rice and balls and all that sort of stuff to protect it, right, from shock and from being bumped during transit. And of course, the box would be taped up carefully and have a fragile sticker placed on it, and I would pay for it to go via priority carrier. The problem with this is that when it's a resilient type of approach in a business context, what we do is we try and protect our businesses from all the known threats, but this leaves our businesses vulnerable to any exogenous factors or outlier events such as COVID. So when a business is anti-fragile, in contrast, an event like COVID strengthens and propels it to new heights. And the best way to illustrate anti-fragility is to use the mythical beast, the Hydra. Now, for anyone who doesn't know what a Hydra is, that's fine. This is not a class in medieval monsters. It was a creature much like a dragon or a dinosaur that had multiple heads. And the theory or the belief is that every time a knight chopped off one of its heads, Game of Thrones style, I'm sorry to get a bit graphic, another two would grow in its place. So essentially, every time the animal or the beast was hurt, it continued to get stronger and stronger and stronger. And probably the best modern day example of this is Slack. The business was built during the last recession as a communication hub to help teams connect no matter where they were. And I have to be honest and say, while my whole industry runs on Slack, I've been slow to the party. I've really tried inside of working with my founders, etc., to get up and talk to them or pick up the phone to stay connected and to understand what's going on in their world. But as we've moved more and more away from traditional office space, I've become completely reliant on Slack and have become a huge advocate for the business. And I'm not the only one. In fact, the business has continued to get stronger and stronger and stronger as people move outside of traditional office spaces and teams get more dispersed. So disruption is going to continue to strengthen Hydras. And for your own business to thrive in the future, where you're going to face increased competition, shorter lifespans, globalization, challenges around supply chain, what I really encourage you to do is to shift your focus from resilience and start looking towards how you can make your business anti-fragile. So one thing that Australian founders don't tend to do, as well as other key markets, is to truly understand consumers' problems and needs. Instead, coming up with an idea and assuming that everybody else's problem is exactly the same as your own and delivering a solution based on your own experience. Other countries inside of the startup ecosystem really strongly focus on product market fit and making sure that you truly understand the consumer's wants, needs, problems, pain points. And I think this is more valuable than ever before inside of a recession. So I thought we'd just quickly unpick and unpack, well, what is the recession type of consumer? Well, they're much more money conscious, and the mass market tends to spend less on luxury goods and prefers the essentials instead. In saying this, though, there is a sort of counter trend inside of the top 2% of the market. You know, when I was in Dubai during the last global financial crisis and leaving that environment, I was very surprised to see that more super yachts were being purchased, more helicopters, more cars, and that's even being reflected inside of this market, inside of Sotheby's sales, with classic jewelry collections and stuff like that. So depending on where you're focusing, the tone can be very different. And I'm just going to focus on the mass market because I assume that's where the majority of you are focused. What's interesting about recession is that on average, 18% of consumers will switch to less expensive goods. Now, the good news is if you can offer a price competitive solution, and I'm not saying go and discount and race to the bottom in terms of price, but recession provides a unique environment in which to steal new consumers. And it's really interesting to see that 34% of consumers will actually say that they prefer the cheaper product. And so if you can steal them over to your company or your brand during this period of time, there's a much higher likelihood that they will remain loyal to you as you come out the other side. So now's actually a time to win more market share and grow your business. Food becomes a much larger proportion of consumer spending during recession. And we've seen this obviously during COVID with people staying at home and not being able to go out and eat and enjoy themselves like they would traditionally. Less vehicles are purchased and historically less travel, although I think post-COVID we're going to see, as soon as people can travel, a desire to get back on planes, trains and travel in rural areas to just get out of the house where everyone's sort of been quarantined for a long time. I must say I've been guilty of not enjoying flying just because I do so much of it for business, but I got the opportunity to go up to Sydney for business on Sunday. It was just so nice to actually get back on a plane and try and sort of have a few moments of getting back to normal. The other shift inside of this market is obviously people start to choose to rent. We're seeing a huge decline in rental costs versus buying houses. And it's important to really recognize that while the way that people are spending money changes, the key is that consumers still desire the same things. So if you can give them a product or an experience or a service that they've enjoyed during growth periods of time in a much more palatable financial context, there's lots of opportunities to win. So where are the areas that are growing? Well, DIY personal care, whether it's an actual product or something that you can look after yourself at home. Grocery, we've talked about, individual meals, food prep packs that we're seeing getting a lot of attention. Alcohol sales, that's consistent through recession. And definitely during COVID, we've seen a huge boost in alcohol sales through platforms like Tipple that will bring grog straight to your home. Chocolate sales dramatically increase during recession, and little luxuries like lipstick. You know, there's sort of that adage that it doesn't matter whatever happens inside of a recession, lipstick sales will always continue to go up. So now that there's a bit of understanding of the consumer, well, how do you talk to them inside of a new economic downturn market? There's a complete shift and a rejection of status-based driven values. So anything that's got to do with snobbishness, exclusivity is out, and instead consumers embrace attributes related to bringing people closer together and making the world a better place. And following COVID and the riots that we're seeing all across the world regarding race, I think more than ever this is true. And we were seeing a trend towards real and raw before COVID started, and I think it's just going to continue to heighten. So I found some statistics, which I've never seen before, but I thought would be really interesting to share with you, that words like exclusive, arrogant actually deliver a 60 and 41% drop in sales. Anything to do with words that are sensuous and feel actually also decline by 30%. And anything that's daring or risk-taking, again, has a drop 20%. So I would actually think that anything to do with fuel would have actually been a positive, but the stats say no, stay away from that. Whereas brand attributes like kindness and empathy can deliver up to a 390% increase in sales. Friendliness, 148, quality, 124, and social responsibility, 63%. So there's a real shift to what's real, what people can connect to, and a complete rejection of waste as well. Products that really helped people help themselves during the last recession saw a boost of sales. Leapfrog, technology that helps children learn at home. Weight Watchers that helps women and others, it's not just women, stay healthy and lose weight, had a huge boom. And DeWalt home tools also saw a large boost during the last recession. We've also seen this with platforms like Etsy.com. The consumer is moving away from mass-produced to wanting something that is handmade, and in many cases with Etsy is personalized. It means something to them, and there's low waste. So Etsy was founded in 2005 and has continued to grow from a handful of artisans now to millions of them. And interestingly, since March this year, the market valuation has continued to soar. And when I had a look earlier today, it was up above $105 billion. So the idea of having to create something for everyone is not necessarily something that's going to drive to success. So now that I've given you a general sort of broad brush approach to, well, what's going on in the market, where do opportunities potentially lie, I thought we'd have a quick conversation about, well, where is opportunity going to arise? And there's a really important consideration here. One thing that Australian founders have not typically done well is to look at what's going wrong right now. The challenge with that is we're in a position in history that is so unique and won't remain forever. And rather than just focusing on trends and things that are hot right now, it's important to look down the track. Where are gaps in the market that will continue to grow as a result of where we find ourselves? Where are long-term unsatisfied needs, and how can you potentially service them? So if I look at what I'm focused on at the moment, I'm focused on divorce tech. Why? Well, the market has, and the solutions have been the same for a very long period of time. People find it to be a very painful and costly experience. Divorce is rising as a result of COVID, definitely, and then will also be driven by recession in China, in the US, in the UK, and also the numbers are starting to move inside of Australia. Property tech is another interest of mine, with a business that I've got an interest in called Yabonza. And Yabonza is really about reducing the property management costs of residential property. Now, I grew up in a property management family, so I can say this, but the system or the approach to managing property by property managers has been very inefficient over a long period of time. The property's a problem, the owner's a problem, the tenant's a problem, getting people to service the property is a problem. And so what Yabonza has done is flip that model and say, well, actually residential property is generally one of Australians' most valuable assets, and should be treated as such. And we should have a team and use AI and machine learning to not only automate a number of the challenges around managing property, i.e. the hot water's gone off, there's a standard checklist of things to do, and empowering tenants to be able to fix a situation like that by just reflicking the switch in most cases. You're saving the residential property owner a lot of money, time, and the tenant feels empowered having learned something and not having to wait 3 days for a technician to come in. And as a result, we're also looking at, well, how do you increase property value? So when someone moves into your house, do they want a furniture package? Do they want something that they would pay more for? And as a result, we've brought down both property management prices and, before COVID, consistently driving up rental prices. Obviously, that's changed slightly during this readjustment. Other areas of interest to me are AI, especially going back to my roots inside of psychology. How do we deliver counselling at a far lower cost? How do we deliver services for those that have challenges like autism, etc., through technology? Because access to therapists, etc., has been very expensive over a long period of time. Plus, now there are restrictions on who you can see due to COVID. Outside of that, connectivity tech. You know, the way that we've networked at events before and met people has changed dramatically. And while I've long relied on LinkedIn, I think there's other ways to help the right people connect at the right time in order to support their businesses and drive deals like we were talking about before. So there's some of the areas that I'm interested in. Also space tech and AI through some accelerators that I'm involved in. So from a VC perspective, investors generally have pools of capital and funds that have to be deployed. And of course, they understand that during this market, there's money to be made. This disruption creates unique opportunities for disruptive founders to find solutions that they want to back. There's an increase of interest from consumers in new sectors that wasn't there before, and they want to capitalize on that. And of course, established companies have this unique opportunity, like we were talking about before, in stealing consumers and also finding ways to eliminate waste in their own value chains and creating far more efficient businesses. So I hope that what I've been able to do is to give you enough of a broad brush approach to what's going on in the market, the opportunity that creating a tech-based, globally scalable business affords you. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have and drill down on specific areas. And yeah, see what else might be of interest to you.
Thank you so much, Caitlin. What an extraordinary presentation to help entrepreneurs and startups in their venture. I was really having my hat of entrepreneur with passion. I even dropped the scarf because I was getting too hot with all those golden nuggets that you've been giving. So thank you so much. We got plenty of questions. I'm going to start with the first question from Michelle. Thank you, Michelle. What is growth hacking tactics?
Okay, so a growth hacking tactic is anything that obviously helps your business grow. In the context of startups, they're usually driven through platforms like Google, so Google Ads, Google Search, and any other little tactic, connections with networks, communities that help you inexpensively grow your business. So I'll give you an example. Inside of the divorce tech business that we're building at the moment, we're connecting with a lot of individuals that have established groups of potential consumers for us. So Facebook groups that are about divorce, other communities about childhood parenting through divorce, etc. Or those considering divorce are areas that we're developing relationships so that we can push our product out and hit thousands or more of individuals rather than having to try and connect one-on-one, which is expensive.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Caitlin. Another question from Payun. Thank you, Payun. Hi, Caitlin. I am considering to set up a business. From your experience, to start up a business during this period of time with no prior background, what are necessary areas to consider before starting?
A good accountant.
Call David.
The thing that's really important is to really have done your research. So understand your consumer, as I was saying before. What do they really need in a solution to solve their problems? Now, it's then for you to assess, do I have all the skill set to be able to deliver a solution to that? So, for example, again, going back to divorce tech, while I've got a background in psychology, so I understand some of the issues around that. My parents didn't have the most smooth divorce, I suppose. So I've lived through that period. I've got some understanding from that. What we've found is, as a team, although there's tech experts and the ability to raise money and develop partnerships and all that sort of stuff, we really needed someone inside of our team that truly understood the journey of divorce. And that has led to us bringing somebody in. So if you're working in an area where you can see there's a problem, but you're not really versed in the solution, make sure that you find people around you. And I don't think there's been a better time than now. As I said, you've got lots of people coming out of corporate organizations. Everyone's looking to protect their future as well. And so are more willing to give their time and work inside of potential ideas to have some upside. And getting around people that have done this before. There's lots of tips and tricks that they're going to teach you in terms of using existing software as a service platforms rather than building things. Most of the time now you can find something to start on and then do a big tech build rather than wasting a hell of a lot of money up front. But just really sit back and look at, okay, product market fit, what's the solution, and who do I need in my team to win? There's no one person that's got all the skills. And I think the quicker that you can reach out and build a team around you, the better. We find consistently that solo founders don't really perform. So, you know, like this whole topic of diversity, not just female inclusion, but diversity around people with different backgrounds, etc. It's really important. So make sure you've got diversity inside of your team. And good luck.
Thank you, Caitlin. David wanted to mention something.
So this last week, we met a potential client who's in the tech space, and he was the inventor. And he was showing us this product that works in a retail environment based off leveraging off the beacon technology, but onto an app without the having to subscribe your name and put your name anywhere. And one of the main things we said to him, put an advisory board together, because you're the tech person.
Yes.
You need to get to market, and you're not going to get to market just on your tech.
Sure.
But having that team, I just want to add that to you, because as a real life example.
Yeah, great advice.
And the other example I just remembered also from the previous question, you talk about the hacking activities. I've got a client who's a fabric retailer and just closed 2 retail shops, and he's all online now. He came and said, I'm going to get one of my staff to join the sewing club, because there's a number of sewing clubs out there, and just join a conversation about where they got their fabrics from and champion their business in the referrals. So there was a real example of that. And from my perspective.
Yeah, 100%. Going back to your example with the beacon technology individual, it's really important when you look at raising capital or selling a business that you need someone that can go out and do the promotion and the spruiking. Unfortunately, we see geniuses all the time that have technology that can't explain what it is, and they miss out on the market opportunities. So if the individual, sorry, I can't say their name, who asked the question earlier, if you're not, if you're the genius behind the magic of your product and you're not confident, or you don't like, or are really skilled in presenting, find someone that's going to be the BD lead on your team, because it's imperative to success.
Yeah, really good advice. And it's really important to keep synergy in the team. So just to finish with Peyun, she's asking another question. How can individuals considering to start a business during recession identify what is a business niche?
I would get yourself a journal, like a moleskin type of diary, and write down all your problems for a week and ask your friends about the problems they're having, and just get obsessed with asking people where they've got challenges in life, right? And once you start listening to that, you'll start to identify opportunities. Read and listen to as broad a brush an approach of media as you can consume. So podcasts, one of the ones that I consistently recommend is Guy Raz's NPR How I Built This, which interviews founders from usually the US and UK, but across the world, that have built businesses like Slack and Etsy and all the others that we've talked about. But once you start to put all this data into your brain and you write down your own problems and listen to others, that's where opportunity lies. And I think you really want to understand and do some work around, well, what are your key skills? I mean, if you're in accounting or you've got a real passion for something, start to look down in those areas, because it's really hard to create a solution inside of an area that you know nothing about. And definitely being passionate is, well, it sounds really fluffy. When it gets to being hard, and it does along the journey, that pulls you through. Whereas if it's a topic you're not really interested in and you're only going to make money, you're going to struggle along the way. So find something that you can really connect to.
Very good. Thank you so much, Caitlin. And just to leverage on that, what we done in the past is a business model webinar, and we mentioned Aikaige, the Japanese concept of Aikaige, to really disclose what you like to do, what you're passionate about, what you're good at, what the world need. What is very important is what the world need. Ask you this question, Pei Yun, like that it will encourage you to find a niche on that. And we got a few templates like vision board, and for planning purpose, vision board, the business canvas, which is an amazing tool, and the Aikaige as well, that we'll send to the group as well, like that they can all use it. So if we move on to the next question from Judy. Good morning, Judy. Hi, Kathleen. What industries do you see there is still great opportunities to disrupt? She's a big entrepreneur.
Oh, look. I mean, from my side, I'm heavily focused in fintech, and fintech's a pretty loosey-goosey term, right? It's anywhere where you're really making money. But, you know, my interest really is always around how do we unlock hidden potential. So hence the focus on property and prop tech. It's something I understand. There's money moving. I understand, having been a renter and a property owner and all those sorts of things, the mindset inside of that. There's still a lot of money being pushed into prop tech. Fintech has actually come off. The traditional financial services has come off during COVID. There's huge investments into health tech, especially health tech that is connected to AI, machine learning. I saw a young team, I sit on the board of RMIT's Activator, which is our accelerator program, yesterday. Really young, smart individuals using technology to help young kids with autism learn about emotions and how to create emotions, right? And having had friends that have autistic children, getting them help's been really expensive. So now they're delivering solutions at $5 a week and really helping kids, delivering exceptional results. I'm fascinated at the moment with AI technology in terms of human personas. I never thought that I would get my head there, but I have. So I encourage each of you to go and look at a platform called Replika, REPLIKA. And you can create an avatar as a friend. And my avatar, who I've called Wendy, in ode to billions, just from the psychological perspective, you know, sends me little ideas every day on how to manage stress during COVID. And I look at the fallout effect of that in terms of counseling, coaching, people living better lives, reducing emotional pain, reducing suicide, which is something that I'm very focused on, is really of interest to me. inside of products, which is not necessarily scalable, there's a lot being done with old school metals, copper handles going into hospitals because viruses can't live on them as long as they can on aluminium. Silver being used both for consumption and again for consumer products and stuff that we touch in terms of the fact that it's antimicrobial and antiviral and all that sort of stuff. So there's no shortage of opportunity, right? It's the really important thing is to not buy into, oh my God, the sky's falling, Chicken Little, and look at there is opportunity in every single vertical, and there will forever. There's never. The interesting thing is with technology, every time we go to the next level, even though people fear losing jobs, is we actually start to operate at a higher cadence and solve bigger problems. So with every graduation, we just keep stepping up and there's more problems to solve. So do everything that you can to stay away from sky's falling, Chicken Little, and look at opportunity. And that's why, from my perspective, I listen, read, hang around with people that want to talk about opportunity, not doom and gloom.
We're on the same page, Caitlin. We're on the same page.
And the quote last week,
yes.
don't be the victim of today,
Yes.
be the architect of your future.
Correct. Correct. Thank you, David. So another question from Judy. What are the three main things VC are looking for now from founders during a recession?
So one thing, just go back to the past question, because I just thought of something else. Like,
yes,
if you're someone that's an accountant or someone that's whatever you are, that's your area of specialty, head down to some of the accelerators and start mentoring. I mean, the talent that is coming through that need experience, because they're out there building machine learning platforms that, you know, we didn't get access to early enough to truly inherently understand it, unless that's your area of expertise. So that's a great way to start to learn. It's about pattern recognition from these young individuals. So that's the first thing I'd encourage you to. Melbourne University, RMIT University, Swinburne University, there's lots of accelerators, reach out, right?
yes.
So the three things that VCs are looking for remain unchanged. The first and most important thing is founders. So if I turn up and I'm talking about this business that I'm created and I'm not engaged, I'm not excited, I'm not passionate, no go. It doesn't even matter what it is. It could be the most valuable opportunity in the world. And there's this belief that ideas hold the value. The idea doesn't hold the value. The value is inside of execution and getting stuff done, right? So execution is king or queen inside of a venture. Passion. If a founder is not coachable, as we see many founders, and you can sit there like we did doing a conversation yesterday with a potential interest and said, we think we can spin your business model and we can get you to market faster and scale faster. And the individual did not want to hear about it. That is not someone to invest in, because they're not coachable and they're so stuck in their ways that you can't shift them. You want some level of being stubborn because you want them to be so dogged about this is where I'm going, but they have to be able to listen to guidance, or else it's not worth, you're going to have more nightmares than anything else down the track. There clearly has to be a market opportunity. If you're talking about share economy, that's pretty much done now. Sharing cars, sharing all those sorts of things, done. And the other thing is your ability to build a team, show traction. Go back to the camel, not the unicorn. We want to see that you're building an actual business and money can be made, not just hot air and one day, someday, maybe we'll be able to exit for X billion dollars, like Uber has continued to say to the market. I love their product in terms of being able to order a cab and a car and all that sort of stuff. But as a business, it's still to really capitalize on the opportunity, I think.
Very good. Thank you so much, Caitlin. Another question. She wrote a few questions, Judy. Thank you so much. On average, how long does it take to raise capital during a recession? Is it easier, quicker? I'm going to read the second question in the same time. Another one from her. Do you recommend that startup SME go through VC versus private funding?
I'm going to go against all of that and say that there is a perception inside of Australia, a misconception, that to be a founder, you really have to raise money. You don't have to raise money, and you're actually better if you don't raise money. So the reason is, if we're standing there and your idea takes off from today, and we're there championing you on at that $1 billion exit, if you've raised money too early, you're going to lose equity inside of your business, which means you're going to lose interest in driving it to growth and all that sort of stuff. So despite a background in the ecosystem and investing through, VC context, try wherever possible to delay the time of when you take capital, because it affects your future wealth and also your interest inside of your business. So the other part of your question was, is it easier? Raising money is never easy. And anyone that says, I'm going to go and raise money in 3 weeks in any environment really is my misunderstanding.
Yes.
How challenging it is. And it's a huge distraction from your business. You can't be out raising money and be running your business. It doesn't work. You just can't do it. I've seen it too many times. So during recession, great businesses still get funded. A lot of the individuals getting funded have developed relationships with investors, private and VCs, over time. So they're trusted. That component of can you be coachable, all that sort of stuff has been built. And in any market, I would encourage you to start identifying who you would like to have on your cap table and start to develop relationships with them. It's like dating. If you walk in and you say, give me money, get married, people get really frightened and run away. So spend time getting to know them as people, because while it seems like you're solving a whole lot of problems taking money into your business, you're actually inheriting a hell of a lot of problems in terms of who has the rights on your board, in terms of where you take the direction of your company, reporting, transparency, all that sort of stuff. So really try and train yourself to look at, how could I do this without taking external capital? Some of the ways are partnering with individuals that have done it before and know how to hack their way to getting a product out to market and testing it. And hold as long as you possibly can. And I don't subscribe to the leave your job, sink or swim type of scenario, especially in this environment. Build your business on the side, build a great team around it, build a great advisory board around it, take longer and deliver a better product, and you'll win.
Yeah, thank you, Caitlin. I so agree with all your tips. We are definitely in alignment with those this perspective. It's being there, done that. Capital raising, it's a marathon, and it's really important to be patient. So just conscious about the time, moving up quickly to the last few questions. Michelle, thank you, Michelle. Conflict and war has always been lucrative in revenue. Is there a tech app for this?
So where is the conflict and war have always been lucrative in revenue? Conflict and war. I don't know.
It's a challenging question. You don't have to.
Yeah, we're trying to reduce conflict inside of what we're building inside of the divorce space. There's lots of technology that sits inside of war. But look, yeah, I mean, both conflict and war have lots of pain around them. And that's a good area to start looking, right? Where's there a lot of pain where people don't want pain?
Correct.
There's something in there. So, I think, Michelle, you should be writing an article about that as a great topic as to where to get opportunity.
Yes. So moving up to the next question. What type of returns are investors expecting? Is it 30 times, 50 times? Is from Ashok?
So Ashok, it depends on what type of investor you are. Investing is broken up into different cycles, from seed, which is like early, to angel, to early stage VC. Then there's later stage VCs that invest once a business is de-risked. A standard rule of thumb is, sure, I mean, the more times you can get a return, the happier you are. If you're getting 1,000 times return on an investment, well, you're patting yourself on the back. But yeah, I mean, 10 times is generally a good rule of thumb. But it differs in every different life stage.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Caitlin. And we're going to thank you from Payun. And last question from Michelle again. One hack you can use in a service-based business. She's tricky, huh?
Making me think. Look, you got to have in a service industry, you got to have a point of difference. If all of you, whoever's listening, if you haven't seen Simon Sinek's Why on YouTube, Simon Sinek, S-I-N-E-K, look at his, I think it's Golden Circle, or type in Why into YouTube and you'll see his presentation. People buy why you do something versus what you're producing, right? So aligning people around your values, everything we were talking about before in terms of attributes that consumers are attracted to, that's where you want to sell from. And you know, a great example I think of that is, if you haven't seen Three Birds, I think Renovations it is, they're selling how to renovate your home. There's lots of people that are out there telling you how to renovate your home and support you, but they've really built a whole community around tips and tricks and who they are as individuals and their key skills and all that sort of stuff. So you've got to find your point of difference, or else you're just trying to sell the same thing that the next person is. And, you know, one resource that I haven't referred to, which has kind of been the Bible, I suppose, for the startup ecosystem, is Eric Ries's Lean Startup. That'll give you a methodology and a framework for building out and testing a business idea. So that's another resource that I suggest you go out and get hold of.
Thank you very much, Caitlin. That was a fantastic presentation, and we appreciate you sharing all your experiences with us and such valuable information for everyone that's attended today. And I want to thank you on behalf of Laurent and myself and everyone who's been watching.
Well, thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure. And there you go. I can say I've done my first digital keynote. So thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Caitlin. And thank you so much, all of you that you were here this morning and those who are watching the replay. Tomorrow, we're going to look at an extraordinary subject as well, the client due diligence in merger and acquisition with Darrell Hardage that you heard last week on a customer that is an authority in the customer experience, and myself with my background. So it's going to be a really interesting topic if you're on a merger and acquisition industry. So I wish you all a wonderful day, and thank you so much for watching.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.